Biden administration FCC pick Gigi Sohn has still not been confirmed, despite being renominated by Biden 3 times. The Senate, which is, it's Democrat controlled, has still decided not to take up her nomination. And the more we wait, of course, the more disgusting the attacks against her have become. So now, according to a recent report in the LA Times, the attacks on 61-year-old Sohn, who would be the first LGBTQ member of the FCC, has taken a grotesque and ugly turn. So recently, they've noticed a coordinated campaign of misinformation against her, smears by Fox News, Breitbart, Daily Mail, and they have been accusing Sohn of being a supporter of sex trafficking. Okay, let's get into the details, right? So now they're basically trying to, again, accuse her of being in favor of sex trafficking, perhaps even grooming, by linking her to the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So now the EFF is a nonprofit, and guess what they support? User privacy and freedom of expression online. That's it. So now the association with the EFF has been used against her in some of the worst ways. And it's because the EFF is against FOSTA SESTA. So you guys remember, some of you might remember when I was talking about FOSTA SESTA. That was back in 2018. So Congress passed these laws during this whole, like, oh, they're trafficking. We got to do something about the sex trafficking. Yes, we do got to do something about the sex trafficking. Yes, it's a major issue. Except that what they passed doesn't really do anything about sex trafficking. It actually ends up further criminalizing, marginalizing sex workers. As the LA Times explains, the laws were signed in 2018, shortly after the government shutdown of Backpage.com. So now Backpage.com was a website used by sex workers, used to connect and screen clients. So now, at the same time, congressional investigators and law enforcement claimed that this was used by traffickers as well. So they shut that down. They passed these laws, which I think were well-intentioned, but just very poorly designed. And what they did is that they carved out sex-related advertisements as exceptions to the safeguards of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That renders online platforms immune from liability for user-posted content. So what happened is, after that was passed, a lot of sex workers came out and said, you're shutting down the only safe way that we can ply our trade. This allows us to screen, our clients, and allows us to stay as safe as we can with our practice still being unjustly outlawed. So now, one of the sex workers that fought back against that bill and unfortunately lost was Danielle Blunt. Danielle Blunt happens to be a professional dominatrix. Blunt argued that FOSTA SESTA increased the dangers for sex workers by censoring online platforms that they had used to, again, safely screen their clients, forcing them back into the streets where they could be more easily exploited. She said this: working online gave sex workers more autonomy over their labor and reduced the need to work under pimps and exploitative management. Blunt had written that in a report, or co-written that, and it was issued by magazine, I'm sorry, not magazine, but Sex Worker Collective, Hacking / Hustling. Okay, so now you might be wondering, why should we listen to someone who's in the industry, who's part of the sex trade industry? Well, why shouldn't you? She's dominatrix. You have to listen to her. You don't have a choice. She'll step on your face. No, I'm kidding. But look, even if you don't believe her about the drawbacks of FOSTA SESTA, well, we should listen to the Government Accountability Office. They issued a report back in 2021 saying that gathering tips and evidence to investigate and prosecute those who control or use online platforms for trafficking specifically has become more difficult since the enactment of these two laws. Due to the relocation of platforms overseas, platforms use of complex payment systems, and the increased use of social media. So basically the laws have had the opposite of the intended effect. They have not shut down trafficking at all. They've actually made it harder to go after the real sex traffickers. And of course, while they're doing that, they also put the sex workers at an increased risk. So these laws need a major, major overhaul. So the EFF has been speaking out against these laws and saying they need to be amended, they need to be fixed, they need to make it so that they do not hurt sex workers and actually go after real traffickers. So now, what does Gigi Sohn have to do with any of this? Nothing. She has not spoken on Fosta Sesta. And as head of the FCC, if she is confirmed, wouldn't have any jurisdiction over it. At all. At all. Never spoken about it. FCC doesn't do anything. Doesn't regulate online advertising on it. Fosta Sesta doesn't apply to communications. They're completely unrelated. So what they have taken, the right wing has, they have taken a homophobic smear, accusing her again of supporting sex traffickers, and that includes child trafficking, by the way, and saying, look at this gay person teaming up with a dominatrix to support sex traffickers. What a horrible person. She should not be on the FCC. In fact, on January 26th and January 27th, Fox, Breitbart, and Daily Mail used a nearly identical headline, probably written by, a certain industry, we'll get to that, that says that Sohn sits on the board of the EFF and would link her and tried to link her with Blunt, and painting her as an advocate of sex trafficking and grooming. Again, another attempt of painting the LGBTQI plus community as proponents of sex trafficking. It's just not true. It's ridiculous. But again, it's the real reason that the right wing is going after her like that is, and stopping her confirmation, is because not only is she eminently qualified to be in that role, but she is also pro-consumer. In fact, she was the top aide to the former FCC chairman Tom Wheeler during the Obama administration. And most importantly, that was when the agency had started to go in a more pro-consumer direction at her urging. So what does that mean? I mean, she's actually going to try to help people if she becomes FCC chair. Protect privacy. Make sure that, the internet is gets treated as an even playing field for everybody, to restore net neutrality rules. Now, telecommunications companies despise this because they want to control the situation, to make more profit, and to make sure that they are not regulated. They do not want her in charge of the FCC. They do not want the FCC to work, and currently it does not, because you have 2 Trump appointees and 2 Democrats. They're not going to get anything done, and they haven't gotten anything done. So now, previously, I had talked about Sohn before in a couple of different segments, and the conservative argument is, well, she hates conservatives. She'll shut down free speech. She hates free speech. Well, actually, she's incredibly fair when it comes to free speech, and actually wants free speech on the internet. And since that attack didn't resonate, didn't work, now they're using the homophobic attacks against her. And what's disturbing here is Democrats are refusing to defend her. They're refusing to come out and actually defend a Biden appointee. She is a Biden pick. She's actually one of the good Biden picks, and she's had a few good picks, by the way, and a few terrible picks. Democrats silent on this. In fact, Chuck Schumer, who could bring her up to a vote, refuses to do so because guess what? Chuck Schumer has links to the telecom industry, meaning that he makes money from, a member of his family, I should say, makes money, personal wealth, from being, I think, on a board of Comcast or AT&T. It's a lot of money on the line for a member of the Schumer family. That's why he doesn't want to bring her up for a vote, hoping that she'll just continue to not be nominated, or I'm sorry, to continue, not being confirmed, and eventually will drop off. And then they can pick someone who is far more pro-corporate to take that position, who he will immediately confirm. So now, funny enough, there are conservatives who, actually have defended Sohn. And again, contrast that with basically no Democrats that have come out to support her. One of them, the conservatives actually, is Preston Patton. Preston Patton's a former executive at Fox, ABC, and the Walt Disney Company. He says, look, I don't agree with her politics at all, but I think that she's eminently qualified and she should be on that board. In a letter to Maria Cantwell, chair of the Senate Commerce Committee, Patton called the latest smear campaign against Sohn beneath scurrilous and the most cynical and baseless smear campaign ever waged against a nominee to serve on the FCC. This is tabloid trash at its worst. And it's all brought to you, I believe, by agents of some of the biggest cable companies and ISPs. It's amazing. Not only that, but I had already previously read you Newsmax commentator Bradley Blakeman's defense of Sohn and her confirmation back in November of 2021, saying that even though he and Sohn have diametrically opposing political views, quote, I trust Gigi to get it right when it comes to protecting my freedom of speech. You even had, at one point, One America President Charles Herring writing on OAN's website in support of Sohn, saying that she believes in the First Amendment and the advantages of a strong and open media for the benefit of our democracy. Now, that did not go well, by the way, with Herring's father, who had that statement literally scrubbed from the website and replaced with this, a statement calling Sohn an enemy of the free press. Look, right-wingers get a right wing. All right, of course. But look, at the end of the day, you have people both on the left and right that actually care about a free and open internet and actually about freedom of speech that want the FCC to uphold fair standards when dealing with both liberal and conservative content online. It's kind of a no-brainer to have a free, fair, and open internet where all pieces of content are treated equally to each other and that no one has an advantage over the other. But again, there are companies out there that will make money by picking winners and losers, picking what content to boost. And generally it's content that will belong to them or services that will belong to them that will make them additional profits. That's what's really the issue here. And so they're going in, they're getting their lackeys, doing all these lobbying, gigs, lavish parties, campaign contributions, that in order to try to prevent someone who will actually challenge the profits of these large telecommunications companies and putting out these massive smears in order to do so. It does show you, how desperate they are to attack her with these homophobic smears. It shows you how desperate they are to try to shut her down. They're afraid. They're massively afraid. And the more afraid the right-wingers are, and by the way, the more afraid and silent that the Democrats are, the corporate Democrats are, the more skittish they are of actually, making sure to confirm her, the more I want to push for her.